Well, Laura, first of all, I want to thank you so much for taking time this morning to meet with me.
Anytime.
I am very excited for this conversation on multiple levels. But one of the things that interests me most to sit with you today was to just kind of dive a little bit of your interesting career path that led you right into where you are right now, being an advisor to so many public safety organizations. As we think of it from a lens of like marketing and branding, how that all plays together. So if you just tell us a little bit of how you got here.
So, former TV reporter, tired of telling negative stories, felt there had to be a better way. And I was working in the time in Sacramento, California, and I had made a lot of friends in the law enforcement profession. And so I would always go to them and like need story ideas because we'd have an afternoon meeting.
Right.
And so in the afternoon meeting, I would pitch their ideas. And so over time, I would get frustrated because I always felt like there was this negativity that surrounded law enforcement. I was like, there's got to be a better way. Mm-hmm. So I said, guys, I'm thinking of getting out and starting my own business. And several like police chiefs and sheriffs said, great, get out, we'll support you. So lo and behold, I got out. It was 2014 when I started my company, and then I had a few people, like I had like 2 or 3 sheriffs and like 2 or 3 chiefs that like started working with me, and then they told their friends and told their friends, and at the time we were living in California, and then I would say probably around 4 years ago started kind of looking outside California, moved to Florida 2.5 years ago now, and work with a number of agencies in the state of Florida. And so I think that really was like how this all started, of like, I just loved law enforcement and the work they're doing, but I realized they didn't know how to communicate well. At the same time, we all know we love law enforcement, but they're not always the most, how would I put this nicely? Easy or welcoming to what they would call an outsider. And I'd be saying like, oh, you're that former TV reporter. Oh, like, what is your agenda? What are you hiding? And as people would get to know, you would have that sheriff or that police chief would say, no, I vouch for her. I work with her. She loves us. She's protecting us. This is what she does. And so now, I'm very fortunate that I feel like in the industry, there's not a lot of me's, for lack of a better word. I'd argue there really isn't another one of me. And I have a unique perspective on it. This isn't just like, we're not like teaching classes per se. There are those people that do that. Yes, I do that once in a while, but I always say, I'll just go teach a class for free. You know what I mean? So for me, but no, it's really working with agencies specific and going, hey, what's their need? How can we help them? And feeling like we're a member of their team. So if you look at like a football team, you've got a quarterback, you've got a coach, you've got defensive linemen, you've got wide receivers, and realizing that we're just a member of that team, and that you need all of them in order to succeed. And so I like to think of us as, we have an outside perspective that really helps those internally succeed. So it's kind of, I don't know, I hope that helps, but that's how we started, I guess.
No, that's amazing. And again, exactly to your point, you have kind of paved your own lane in the work that you do. And that's the part that when I think about it from a branding marketing perspective, I think most public safety agencies don't realize the key piece that communication can have when we're talking about their reputation in the community and that impact. When you're working with these agencies and their leaders to try to maximize their communication, sometimes for the great moments and sometimes for some of those hard moments that they deal with as an agency, what are the things that you're thinking of first as we're thinking it from a branding perspective?
So I'll start with the negative because that's always where my stressor points are, right? So the first thing I'm going is, what are they going to miss? I'm always looking at what are they missing that I need to pick up and find for them, because I feel like that's sort of our job, right? Like, I think a lot of times when an office, a sheriff's office or a police department, they want to like hire a me for that thing. You cannot hire a me. It doesn't work that way. And I don't mean like, oh, okay, who do you think you are? No. I don't mean it like that. I'm saying you can't hire somebody to work internally to do what we do. You have to have someone on the outside who is essentially you're essentially paying that person in order to give you that feedback. And if you don't do that, then you're never going to be able to truly get what it is, because ultimately everybody who works internally has a boss. My boss is myself, right? And they're paying for that information. So I would say that I think every agency needs to have someone on the outside who does not report to anyone at the organization. Like, yes, you could say, I'm still getting a check, right, as an advisor, but my job is very clear that my job is to advise you whether you like it or not. And just like that sheriff or chief can fire me, right? I also can fire them.
Right.
Hey, you're not listening. Hey, this isn't, and that doesn't mean they have to listen to me, but that you're not receiving the advice, or you're a difficult client, or you really are pretending you're all about transparency, but you're not, and I'm not really going to go down that road, right? So I think that, when we look at, what is it, I'm looking at what are you missing, okay? And then I'm looking at it from what perspective can I offer from all the other agencies we work with, what state it's in, is it a blue county? Is it a red county? Is it a purple county? We're looking at all of those things. Then when you look at the flip side of it, the positive side, the bringing the communities together, the growing, that's a different situation. And that is done all the time outside of those other critical moments. And it has to be, because I always say you can't do one without the other. And if you're not doing both, then your crisis communications isn't going to work. And if you don't do well in your crisis communications, then your branding, marketing, goal of bringing your community together with law enforcement is not going to work either. And so in those situations, I'm looking at, okay, can we think outside the box? And what are we doing? So it could be as simple as let's say, and I'm just making this up, and I'll call it let's call it the Greene County Sheriff's Office for this sake, so we won't get it. The Greene County Sheriff's Office has started an Instagram page. Yeah, they're way behind on the times, but they're starting, okay? When they reach 10,000 followers, they're going to tell other people, when we reach 10,000 followers and we want 10,000 followers, we're going to hold an open house and have a barbecue, all right? So I'm looking at it and going, yeah, I know there's little events and communities and things like that, but can we have a goal with our community together where then they show up and we're excited and we basically have a party? That's something that nobody ever does.
Right.
I get it why they go to them, but it's thinking outside the box and suggesting those types of things. And I'm just using that as one type of a marketing example.
Yeah.
Other things might be you're doing what's called, qualitative and quantitative data. And it's understanding where your community's at, whether it's because you're legally bound to by laws within your state, or whether it's because, hey, I am the police chief or I am the sheriff and I want to know about this, right? It's asking questions that sometimes we don't always want to know the answers to. I mean, that's the fear a lot of times in data collection is, ooh, I don't want to ask that question because that could be a Public Records Act request. That could go out. And then once we get it, do I need to share it? Do I not need to share it? This profession is so at times, nervous about whatever they don't have control over. They don't have control over what people are going to say. So it's well, I don't know that I want to do that, right? Or, ooh, I want to taper this question so we don't get this kind of an answer. But I think that when we start to be vulnerable, right, and we really want to know what people think, we're only going to grow more. And so I think that when you look at a branding and marketing perspective, I think looking at data collection is so important in the process of how do we grow and communicate well with our community.
Absolutely. I know transparency, you even said it a few times in our short talk right now, is very important to you. When we look at transparency from a branding marketing perspective, we know that sometimes it can be used as a flashy word, right? We're transparent, we want to work with the community. But what would you tell public safety leaders that might be watching this, right? And they're wondering, or they believe, I am being transparent. How can they maximize that to really have an impact, not just in crisis moments, but ongoing functions as an agency?
First, I would say, are you really being transparent?
That's the question.
Are you? Okay, you don't have to tell anybody else. Just talk to yourself, in the mirror, whatever it might be. And people are going to think I'm crazy right now. But ask yourself, are you really? Or what makes you nervous? What makes you nervous? Are you asking those questions? Are you toe dipping? Are you jumping in? Are you bringing friends with you to surround it and have those conversations? I think really you have to start there with being honest with yourself. I think the next thing you do after that is you go to some of your trusted advisors, and they can't be all internal people.
Right.
I think the problem is tunnel vision. Tunnel vision, tunnel vision, tunnel vision. You all get, I remember there was a time when I was dealing with a crisis, and it was a natural disaster where a ton of people had died in wildfire, in a massive wildfire. And we were sitting around a table, and everybody in the room was law enforcement and worked at the office with the exception of me. And so one of the things that the deputies were going around doing is they were in Spanish, or they thought was correct Spanish, telling people to leave their homes. Now, I don't speak Spanish, and nobody in that room spoke Spanish. But I said to the room, I said, hey guys, are you sure he's saying that correctly? But nobody in that room thought to think think that way.
Right.
Again, the value of having that person on the outside that's going, what if that person is not saying that correctly? Mm-hmm. And you're going to put this video out to the public to say, hey, look at what we tried to do. So we went and got someone who spoke Spanish, and the person goes, no, I don't know what he's saying. Oh, thank you, Jesus, that we did not release that video and put that out and create a whole news story that we think we're doing the right thing. And to the deputy's credit, I'm glad that they tried.
Right.
But if we're going to go out here and say, hey, look at what we're doing, and when we're showing people what we're doing, it shouldn't be, hey, look at what we're doing, but we're trying to show the different avenues of how we tried to reach people, but you did it wrong.
Yep.
I don't know that you want to create a story that wasn't a story before because you're trying to be like, look at me.
Yeah.
Right? But again, when you only have people at the table that all work internally, that's a problem. Every agency needs to basically have, I don't know if you want to call them a consultant, if you want to call them an outsider, if you want to call them a trusted strategic advisor, if you want to call them a transparency advisor, whatever you want to call them, every advisor, I believe in, every agency, I believe in law enforcement today needs somebody like that. Now, granted, some people say, well, isn't that your business? That's fine, yes. I get that. But at the same time, take me out of it. Mm-hmm. Take me out of it. You're going to tell me that you're going to trust 100% of the time you only have people around the table who think like you, that work for you, that are in your agency. You're going to bet on that every time?
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
That's a good, that's a great point. One interesting point that you just brought up is how that one moment can just change the trajectory of what you're trying to do. So oftentimes in public safety, they're dealing with, pressure points. Something happened. It's a crisis. We need to make a decision fast. When we talk about it from a communication standpoint and with your background in journalism, when public safety agencies are confronted, they're in the moment, they're dealing with a crisis, what's the first thing you would advise them to kind of think of before taking action or publicizing something or going on screen and saying something that can really have an impact when we think about it long term for them as they continue to build trust with the community?
I'd first tell them to take a breath and take a minute. And so you're asking me, what would you tell them to do or say? And I'm saying that's the first thing I would tell you to do, because there's so much anxiety. Mm-hmm. And so they've got to find a way for the moment to calm down. What's ironic is that public safety, like cops run in to save people from fires all the time. Like we say it's the firefighters, and yes, the firefighters do that, but we know a lot of times cops are first to the scene and they're running in that burning building and they're saving people, right? They're not stopping. They just go do it. They like I can't imagine these bravery of these women and men who run into these buildings and save them. And then you look at it, and then they run into a man with an armed gun, armed with a gun into a school or whatever. They just run in. They don't even, I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys are amazing. You have no fear how you do this. Then the media shows up with the camera and they're like, they're like, okay, I gotta go hide. You know what I mean? I'm like, hold on. You ran into a building, you dealt with an armed man with a gun face to face, and you're scared of someone with a camera? Right? It kind of makes sense. So I say, take a breath. Right. Take a minute, calm yourself down. I think the next thing you have to think about really is, what are they after? What are they after? And if you can figure out what they're after, then you can hopefully get to a place where you might not necessarily like what they're doing, but have your side represented accurately. Sometimes the reason sides don't get represented accurately is because the agency is not forthcoming. Why not?
Right.
What are you? You're not hiding anything. You didn't do anything wrong.
Correct.
Why aren't you? I get that you're not going to like the angle they're going to have, but wouldn't you rather be in it and have your perspective shown? Yeah, they're going to show you the other side too. That's technically their job. Right? So thinking about that, and that's honestly where I would start.
Yeah. And I asked that kind of knowing that would be your answer.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes we complicate it in our minds of how to tackle these things in moments of crisis. Yeah. Especially because of the pressure that comes with it, especially when we're talking about public safety leaders that are the ones to stand in front of that podium and have to answer the questions or give the update to the community, right? There's this pressure that comes with it that they feel like, man, I want to say the right thing. I want to represent the agency and the work of my people the right way. But I think that there's something to the take a breath, take a step back. You know you did the right thing. And even if, let's say, for whatever reason, it didn't go that way. When we talk about building trust with the community through transparency, sometimes it is saying, hey, this is what happened, but this is what we're going to do to fix it. What's your mindset on that?
Oh, I think that's absolutely the way to go. I think sometimes what happens is that when the, for lack of a better explanation, bad thing happens, we're so scared and hide behind it, right? But it's like, no, actually, this is really easy. Let's just say it happened. We don't like it, and here's what we're going to do to fix it. Exactly what you just said. When you do that, it's amazing how it goes away. It's like, I'll use the example of, like, say you have a 6-year-old son, and you come home, and the lamp is broken in the corner, okay? And so your 6-year-old son runs to you and goes, Mom, I broke the lamp. You're not happy that the lamp is broken, but you're like, okay, little Johnny, thank you so much for telling me, blah, 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 like, let's not run around the house again. Let's say you come home, you find the lamp broken, and little Johnny's like nowhere to be found, like hiding, like, I don't know, Mom, I have no idea what happened, right? Now you're frustrated because he didn't come to you. It's the same concept when you're dealing with the public, right? And the tipping point is different for a police chief versus a sheriff. When we're speaking about law enforcement, we have to understand that they're two very different things. And I think a lot of people in the normal public doesn't understand the differences, right? And even sheriff's offices differ from place to place. Some run jails, some don't, and all that to be said. The reason I mention that here is that the pressure point for a chief is, I got to answer to my city manager. The city manager answers to the commission, right? And like, will that person lose their job? That person is basically running every single day to keep her or his job run. As for a sheriff, the difference is I don't want to let my community down.
Correct.
I don't want to let, the voters down and the people. And yes, they're running once every 4 years, but they also realize that like over time, things build up. And we've got to make sure that we are representing the office correctly so that the voters understand that the person who runs that office, who they elected, is trustworthy.
Right.
And that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. Trustworthy, transparency, right? These are words that, at least in my mind, when I think of branding and marketing around public safety, are words that are in the forefront for me. For me, I have found that the topic of branding, marketing within public safety is like a taboo. It's not talked about, or the connection isn't usually made by agencies or leaders because they say, I don't need to brand, I don't need to market. I serve everyone in my community. Those are things for, the private sector. But there's great value in understanding some of those techniques and mechanisms that are used within branding and marketing to amplify the message of the agency. From your experience in journalism and being an advisor to public safety leaders, where is that balance between, yes, we're a public safety agency, but we also need to market ourselves. We need to brand ourselves in a way that the community can trust.
So I have to start with this. What is your definition of branding and marketing? And I'm not asking you that question. I'm saying that that's a unique way now. Because is branding and marketing, hey, let's discuss our logo. Hey, what do our uniforms look like? Hey, what do our cars look like? Hey, what does our social media look like? Is branding and marketing in what we say?
Right.
Is branding and marketing in the responses we have? Is it in the stories we put out? Is it in the way we carry ourselves call to call? What I'm going to say, is it in the way that we have a strategic advisor? Is it in the way that we've elected that particular sheriff? Whatever that is, branding and marketing is almost everything if you think about it now. And so it almost starts with a strategic viewpoint. So you've got to think of it from a very high 30,000 foot view. It's not just like, here's the logo, here's the car, here's the uniform, here's the message. It's what do we stand for as an office, as an organization, as a department, okay? Right. So figuring out what do we stand for, and then in our logo, it has to show that. In our social media Instagram post, it has to show that. In our coffee with the cop, it has to show that. In our message at the academy graduation where the sheriff is at, it has to show that. And so I don't know if I'm answering your question, but that really is where it is now. And I think before, we go, it was so taboo. And I would go, honestly, branding and marketing is everything.
Yes.
Branding and marketing is when you have a critical incident and you put out your critical incident video that shows what happened. That's branding and marketing.
Absolutely.
Branding and marketing is how the sheriff shows up to her event, the way she walks in, who she comes with, right? How she speaks. Like, that's how it is. And so we have to be cognizant and thinking about those things, that branding and marketing is happening 24/7. It happens when the person calls 911 for help and the dispatcher is branding and marketing that office or that department.
And that's exactly how I see it. And that's been kind of my focus and mission as I dive into this. And again, why I wanted to have this conversation with you. It is from we think of all the touch points that the community can have with the agency, with the department that is in their communities. And every single one of those touch points can either amplify the message that you want to stand for, or it can really degrade what you're trying to offer to the community. And, you know, with public safety, when we think about the 911 call, you know, that's usually can be sometimes the person's worst day of their life, or they're in seek of help. And so if from that very beginning, from that moment that they call 911, they're experiencing what the foundation of that agency or department stands for, then from there on, it just seeps into what their experience is with that agency. And the point is that branding and marketing, when we're talking about public safety, it's across the board, from leadership all the way to the patrol person in the community engaging. And I think that sometimes, because we haven't traditionally, when we think about public safety, connected those two, it can sometimes get lost. I think that one of the interesting things that you mentioned was incident videos, right? And I think to your point of transparency, sometimes those are the moments where a public safety leader is there thinking, do I put it out? Do I not put it out? And I know that that's something that CoPro Media does and does very well. When you're talking to the public safety leaders, what is the thought process that you're kind of trying to instill in them when we're trying to get them to put those videos out?
So I always like to put it this way. 99% of those videos are all going to show law enforcement doing their job in a way where people are going to appreciate. It's the 1% where, as people would call it, questionable, or maybe not necessarily the direction it should go, that they're worried about. What I find, what's so fascinating, and I have to tell you, this is one of my key points, like it gets me every time. I tell agencies, you put all of them out or you do none of them.
Correct.
You don't pick and choose. When you start picking and choosing, that's when it becomes problematic in any direction. The media is always going to ask for it for the 1%. Mm-hmm. They don't necessarily care about the 99%. Why are we not showing the 99%? Mm-hmm. We have a responsibility to educate the public on the 99% as well. That's called branding and marketing. Mm-hmm. And when you don't, you're missing an opportunity to say, look, the media is going to focus on this 1%, but you need to understand this, and this is the 99%. And by the way, we're going to deal with the 1%. Mm-hmm. And you deal with the 1% by showing that CIV. So what I have found is that agencies a lot of times are putting out that video in the 1%, but they're not doing the others. And I go, why are you not? They say, well, no one's asking about it. I don't want to create a problem. And I say, okay, so you're only going to put it out when they're asking for it? Do you think they're going to ask in these 99%? No, they're not. So why are you not doing it? So you either put them all out or you don't put them out. Or the opposite is they only want to put out the 99% and they don't want to put out the 1%. Right. You can't do that either. Like, what are you thinking? Mm-hmm. You've got to show when it doesn't go well. Right. Because that's how people trust you. So I think that for me in this particular space, of which, you know, we probably do, I would say almost 10 to 15% of all the like critical incidents that involve a deputy involved shooting or an officer involved shooting around the country. That's, you know, how are the numbers? The numbers for us are based on how many we're doing per year versus how many there were in the country kind of thing. And if I look at the stats, that's kind of where it's at. It's because some of the places don't have body cam footage. So you have to take those out. Some of the places don't know we exist. Some of the places they're too scared. Some of the places do it internally, which I don't think doing them internally is a good idea, because you're going to miss things because you're going to want to protect your own. Right. That's not what this is about. This is about telling facts. Mm-hmm. And so having the perspective that we have, which is working with law enforcement, understanding their mission, and at the same time understanding journalism and the importance of transparency with the public, we did that every day for years, and bringing that together in order to say, this is what happened, we're able to help protect all sides. Right. And so that's why it's so important that someone who doesn't work there is putting these together rather than someone internally. It's a balance of the complexity of the work that's done in public safety. And, you know, these agencies are representing the communities that they serve, and that balance of education, because that's really what these videos are also, right? Most people don't know the day-to-day realities of what law enforcement goes through. No idea. They'll see the clip that is posted on, let's say, social media, or a clip that the news decides to put out. But that's, again, to your point, the 1% of what's happening. If we're trying to build trust with our community and establish a branding of cohesiveness with the communities we serve, it entails being open and transparent with all of it. Two questions come to mind.
as a person that has had the experience that you have, like we mentioned, what would you tell agencies and leaders that they should be proactively looking into when we think about it from a branding and marketing perspective, so that when that crisis happens, it's a lot easier if we're taking proactive steps?
So just like they have SWAT training, firearms training, you need to have communications training. And you probably need to do that twice a year where you are going through incidents. And then I think also on the side with that, you need to look at what type of training are you providing to your team. So it doesn't mean, and I don't mean, hey, you're going to a class once a year, a public information officers training. I'm talking about, do you have people coming in? Are you working with someone regularly? Is there someone who fits sort of the bill that I'm talking about outside of me, that really has a good grasp of law enforcement and the media and the community and can bring all of you together in one shot so that you're covered when something happens. Those things would be the biggest things that I think they need to do right now.
Right. If there was anyone that you would recommend for me to talk to in this sphere, in this bubble that you've created that could enhance the conversation around branding, marketing, and public safety, who would that be?
If I could give you someone to go talk to, who would it be? So I would probably actually go talk to the Florida Sheriff's Association. I would go talk to them or the Florida Police Chiefs Association, and here's why. They're looking out for sheriffs and chiefs all across this state. And I would tell you, if you were in Iowa, to go do it there, okay? They have a unique perspective on it. You might have thought, like, is there a person or a name? And what I would say is they're looking out for the best interest of law enforcement, but they also deal with stuff a lot on the state level, dealing with legalese and a lot of laws and things that are happening. So I would be fascinated to see what their perspective is, because they have to brand and market their associations, but also to get their members to come in, the members being the police chiefs and the sheriffs, but also they want to be a support system to their sheriff's offices and their police departments. So that would be who I would tell you to go talk to, just me.
And that makes sense. It's like from the top down, right? What does that support look like from there? What are the conversations being had in those associations that trickle down to those leaderships and into the community that inevitably land us where we want, right? Which is that transparency that helps us build trust with the communities that are being served.
And what they see.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a perspective that may be wider than what we can see in the communities that we're in.
100%. They deal with so much from so many different agencies. I think it would be fascinating to see what they would say about branding and marketing and what it looks like for them. They're going to talk about it from an association perspective, but then also how does that trickle down to the agencies that they represent? So that would be my advice.
Well, Laura, again, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you sitting with me and having this conversation. And again, congratulations on the lane that you've established for yourself and the work that you're doing across the United States at this point, and the impact that you're having within public safety.
Well, you're pretty amazing, and I think you should be like doing my job. I swear, I'm like, I don't know, you should be doing my job, or like you're going to be starting some lane for like teaching all over the country that's going to be different than what I do. So I think you're brilliant, you're smart, you want to learn from all, and you keep learning. So I'm like, okay, you got to start like a whole academy or something.
And that might be an idea.
I like it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome.